Hi there. Welcome to the Carlsbad Hub, Vesta Divorce. We are going to be recording this evening, and we're going to be talking this evening about the home. It's really all about the home tonight. You're going to be hearing from the entire team that we have here in Carlsbad, and let me introduce you to the whole team before we get started. My name is Laura McGee. I am a divorce mediator. I'm located in the village of Carlsbad, but I work with clients over Zoom if they want to, anywhere in the state of California. I don't work outside of California. I'm also a co-parenting specialist, which is often a very big part of how I mediate. And I'm a divorce coach, which typically involves individuals in the contemplation stage or self-representing or wanting support through their own mediation with a different mediator. So those are the three roles I play. And the other part of our legal team, let me introduce you to everybody. Ken, what about you?
Yes, thank you, Laura, and welcome everybody. As Laura said, I'm the other part of the legal team. I'm the divorce attorney. So my entire practice is dedicated to nothing but family law, divorce. So I deal with everything at the beginning of a divorce, such as child custody, visitation, child spousal support, dividing assets and debts. And I also handle any matters relating to a divorce that has happened in the past, meaning comes up after the judgment has been entered, because sometimes things come up that have to be addressed, whether it's modifying custody visitation or support or dealing with assets that may not have been disclosed. So that's the entirety of my practice. I also, even though I'm heavily involved mostly in litigation, meaning going to court to fight about stuff, I also have other aspects that I can help with, such as Laura's a mediator. And so I offer a service called being a consulting attorney, where I can assist someone who's in mediation evaluate proposals and strategize about addressing their divorce issues in mediation, because as a good mediator, such as Laura, has to maintain their neutrality at all times. So if you're looking for advice that's directly tailored to you and your best interest, it can't come from the mediator. It has to be from someone independently looking out for your best interest, and that would be someone like me who's serving as a consulting attorney. I also can function as some people call it a hybrid model, where people aren't mediating, but they're also not going to court and litigating and fighting about every little thing. So it's a situation where I represent one spouse and the other spouse is represented by their attorneys. And through the attorneys, we negotiate, go back and forth, and ultimately come to a fully resolved case with a judgment that gets filed with the court without having to go to toe and fight in court about every little thing. Not as efficient as mediation, but they're definitely more cost effective and much more less painful than full on litigation. So that's the range of services that I offer. And again, welcome. So we're looking forward to sharing some knowledge with you this evening. With that, I'll turn it over to our amazing real estate team, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Cheney, and I've been a real estate agent for over 23 years now. However, a large portion of my particular business is in this divorce space. I've been in your shoes. I went through a divorce myself quite a few years ago. I'm now remarried and on the other side. So I'm passionate about helping people through this process, specifically when it comes to the decision on whether to keep or sell the home. So I'm more of a real estate strategist. I come in and evaluate it, but also help you walk through that decision on whether to keep or sell it. So happy you're here.
Hey, my name's Dan Palmer. I'm with the Crest Funding Group. I'm filling in for my partner today, Emily Palmer, who's normally your specialist. But here at the Crest Funding Group, we're strategic partners helping you with the complexities of divorce. So whether that's looking at selling the home and purchasing one or two properties, whether it's refinancing to pull equity to share that, or looking at other aspects of what your current mortgage looks like, what you might qualify for individually, we're here to help.
And I'm Laura Yidkin. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst, also known as a CDFA. And as you can imagine, two of the most popular questions I get are, hey, Laurie, should I keep the house? Or, hey, Laurie, how can I keep the house? But anyway, I work with clients who are going through mediation, who are going through litigation, or who also are going through that in between that Ken talked about, where they're having their attorneys negotiate in a collaborative way. And I'm helping people understand the financial and tax impacts of various settlement options so they can think about the short term today and what it means for them long term in terms of financial security.
Excellent. All right, we're so happy you're here this evening. It is all going to be about the house, but of course, the house involves so many other considerations. Like Lori says, there's financial, but there's legal as well. Just a couple tips before I turn off my video. We have a questionnaire. If you take a moment and respond to that, it helps us to modulate some of our information this evening. We also have a Q&A box. We answer everything live so that we can maintain your confidentiality. So feel free to leave your questions. We are here to educate and connect and inform. We are not here to give legal or professional advice. If you have a specific question that requires a consultation, every one of us offers our time complimentary, and you can reach back out to the concierge. Vesta has a concierge service, where they will hook you up. That's the wrong word. They'll connect you with any of the professionals, and they're not necessarily here on this webinar tonight because Vesta is across all of the states. But also tonight, we're really only talking about California law. So if you have questions that may not be about community property, and the house is a big one when it comes to community property and all the financial rules around, did you own it before you got married and the community moved into it? Did you get an inheritance and paid the down payment? So these are the things that come up all the time about the house. Financially, we're going to make sure we cover those, but they will be relevant to California law. Okay. So enjoy the webinar. So glad you're here. And by the way, we're here every month, and we also have a whole bunch of recordings. If you want to get yourself educated, informed, then please, again, reach out to the concierge. Take it away, real estate team.
All right. I'm going to share my screen for a bit. Dan, you can feel free to stay on. I'm going to talk a little bit through some of these slides, and then I'll ping over to you too when we get to some of the mortgage stuff. But let me see. Can everyone see my screen? Dan, can you see my screen? Since I can't see anyone else. Okay, so we're going to talk through, I've got 10 slides here to go through, and I assume one of your largest assets is the home. And so in assuming that and dealing in this space all the time, there's quite a few things that we have to look at in order to figure out whether you keep, you sell, you refinance, all the things when it comes to your house being your largest asset. Going through divorce myself, I know that it's extremely emotional. And I also know that you're not always making the right decisions because your goal is to just move forward. The only way I feel like it's just like divorce is just one of those unfortunate circumstances through life that you want to try to plow through as quickly as possible because you just want to get to the other side. You don't want to deal with it. But you cannot do that because there's a few things that we're going to chat through, but divorce is final and property division specifically is final. So you've got to reverse engineer all the decisions when it comes to the house specifically in order to make this decision. So this is who I am. The number one mistake that I have people do all the time is exactly what I just said. They're rushing through because that feels like relief, and it can cost you a whole bunch. So we're going to go through what to look at, whether ideally, if you're in California, we're going to be talking about some specific items to California, like Prop 19. But if you are in another state, I highly suggest that you try to connect with a real estate agent or real estate team, specifically a mortgage broker as well, that is certified in this space. It is very different. And I didn't even understand, honestly, how different it was until I walked through it myself, because I was looking at it as just another transaction. I'm going to walk into a listing appointment. I'm going to go through what the home is worth. And you're going to tell me if you want to sell the home or choose me as your real estate agent or somebody else. But that's not really what it comes down to in the divorce space. I don't even go through my listing presentation. I don't even tell you how I can sell your home. I specifically want to go through reverse engineering what we're going to do right now to help you make that decision on if you should even use somebody like me to sell your home. And most real estate agents don't do that unless they are in this space and divorce certified. So that's the number one thing, is to really, when you're in the thick of it and you're in this space of just wanting to push through and get to the other side, you need to slow down and you need to reach out to people that are certified in this area to help you make decisions. So hopefully that makes sense, because right here, as it mentions, rushing past this can cost you tens of thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands of dollars in divorce if not done properly. Because again, property division is final. And I'll say that probably 5 times to have it sink in. The next slide, start with the life and not the house. And this is where I actually start in 90% of my conversations with people, because a lot of times, most clients that I sit down with have not figured out where they want to be a year from now, 3 years from now, and 5 years from now. And every decision that you make in this process of divorce is impacted in your future self. So we've got to start where you're going. And so I have a whole guide that if you want that, you can email me after. But it's a 42-page guide that goes through the emotional side. And there's probably 2 or 3 pages dedicated just to that emotional side, asking you a whole bunch of questions that you need to answer. So reverse engineer what you want your life to be like. So let's talk through that for a second. Do you need to be closer to family because now you're a single parent and you need somebody to start helping you doing pickups and drop-offs? Are you further away? Can you afford everything in the house? We're going to go through the financial side. But emotionally, this is a horrible example, but I had a call about a month ago from a woman that told me that there was a lot of abuse, toxic marriage, and a lot of abuse that happened in the household. And she was sleeping on the couch, but she wanted to keep the home. But she could not go into the bedroom anymore because there was abuse in her household, and she just wanted to keep the kids in there, but she decided to sleep on the couch. I'm going to tell you right there that emotionally, the house was keeping her, she thought it was keeping her safe, but her house became toxic too. So she needed to actually sell and move on unless she could go through the emotional side of it and work through that first to where she can move back into her bedroom, live a normal life in a house. It should not be a toxic area for you. It's especially since her kids were there. She had to work through that. So is the home, name the feeling of what it is for you right now. Is it peaceful still with your ex removed or thinking about your ex removed? Is there freedom attached to it? Or are you going to be drowning in debt? So where it's becoming chains that are just holding you down? Is there stability? Is there room to breathe? All of those emotional questions really are the very first thing that you need to go through in order to figure out whether to keep or sell the home. And then you have to ask yourself, once you've gone through all those pages of journaling and emotional questions, does this house support that or make it harder? And if you can actually answer all those questions and then finally get to this question and say, yes, I really think that this home is still my home and it's something I want to keep and hold on to for my family, for the memories, for my kids, all of it, then work on the next step, which is the financial portion, to figure out if you can keep the home. But if all of these keep coming back to red flags and you're emotionally checked out and that home is becoming an anchor and chains, then you should not keep the home. And that is just the hard knock facts of somebody telling you that's not attached emotionally to it. I can usually figure out in less than 2 minutes of a phone call if that person emotionally should be keeping that house or not. And so what people do is they focus on, I just want the house, I just want the house, and they haven't even asked those emotional questions. And when you do, it's very quickly, easily identifiable if somebody should keep it. So picture yourself 5 years from now, what your future self is going to look like, and then what would she or he thank you for? If you kept the house 5 years from now and your life has moved on and your kids are still there, or maybe they've graduated now, would the house thank you for keeping it and keeping those memories? Or were you drowning in debt and you didn't want to sleep in the bedroom and you want to sleep on the couch? Would the house speak to you and say, it's not for me? So think about that. The next piece, I'm going to bring in Dan in this one too. And we're going to ping back and forth because the next piece is truly the numbers. And there's a lot of, actually, Dan, there's one more slide. I'm going to finish with this slide. The next slide I'm going to bring you in on because that's the buyout portion too. But before you decide what to do with the house, you need to know what the house will do to you financially. Again, right here in bold letters, property division is final. Once the judgment is signed, it's locked in and there's no going back to renegotiate it when it comes to the house. It's yours or it's not. So you need to know what those real numbers are, your fixed costs. Another thing that always comes up, I can tell in 2 seconds, is when I'm talking to somebody that's actually managed the finances of the home or somebody that is not. And it's very clear in 2 minutes of asking some questions, if that person knows where their mortgage is, knows what the mortgage cost is, has called the homeowners association and maybe asked, hey, is there an assessment coming down the pike? They don't know anything about the house as far as fixed costs. So you actually, if you haven't been managing the finances, I want you to actually go out and know every dollar that house costs you. That's, again, the HOA, that's your mortgage, that's your utilities, that's the maintenance. Look back at the last 2 years of what maintenance you've done on there. And then start to talk about any deferred maintenance. Do you think that there's hidden costs? So this is knowing your real numbers. That's currently what is costing you right now. And then the hidden ones are future. So their future costs. Deferred maintenance is a big one. So deferred maintenance, I had somebody that never got a home inspection going through this process. One of the things I'm going to talk to you about is you should, if you're looking at buying out the home, you are the buyer. So just when you bought the home, what did you get? You may have gotten a home inspection. You may have gotten a termite inspection here in California, especially Southern California. We deal with termites. So we have termite inspections. You may have gotten a roof inspection, a septic inspection, all kinds of inspections that you may have gotten. You may want to do those again if you've owned the home for a long enough period of time and you really have never lifted under the hood again in the home, because you don't know. I had somebody that did not do any inspections, and I'm not even joking, 2 weeks after everything was final and they did the buyout, the roof started to leak. That was a $30,000 cost. Right out of the gate, that person had to figure out how to manage. So do you have savings for that deferred maintenance? You have to know what those hidden costs are. Insurance is a big one here right now. We're getting dropped by insurance companies all over California, especially in some of the areas in Southern California for fire. So making sure that you are rock solid in knowing your insurance costs. Sure, that you could also do a buyout and then that could change. You could be dropped next week, but calling your insurance company, making sure you're solid. Is there any indication that maybe the California Fair Plan, which is the fire insurance fair plan, you may need that. You need to know all those costs. And if you can solely, one income, one person, keep up with the costs. The number one thing I hear all the time is I didn't realize how expensive the house would be on my own. I hear it all the time until they actually are dealing with it by themselves. So, Dan, now this is you.
There.
This is the buyout option, and there's numerous different ways that you can go down this road if you're choosing to buy out, but let's ping back and forth right now, and you tell me what on your side, as far as when somebody reaches out to you going through this process of divorce and they want to buy out the home. My assumption is they may think that they can just keep their lower interest rate that they had, the 2 and 3% interest rate. And you tell me how that conversation goes for you.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of times people, I think the instant decision when the divorce is decided on is I'm keeping the house. And that's an emotional decision. They haven't gone through the finances. They haven't thought how to. It's just, that's the most important thing to me. How do I do it? So yeah, the fixed cost is a big one. The mortgages, everybody that's owned for several years has these historic interest rates in the 2 and 3% range. Obviously, rates today are not in the 2-3% range. I wish they were. So Are you able to keep that interest rate? Is your spouse on the mortgage with you? And if they are they going to stay on that, or are they going to want to be removed? Are you leaving the property to your spouse? If you are, is your name going to stay on their mortgage? Because if it is, that's going to hurt your qualifying. What do you qualify for on your own? If you're going to be getting spousal support, how long have you had it? And when will the divorce be finalized? You need stamped papers and proof that you've been receiving the spousal support before you can use that to qualify. The debts that are showing on your credit report that are shared, how are those going to be split? And when will the debts that are not going to be yours be taken out of your name? Those are all big things to look at in qualifying. Before you sell the house, what are you going to qualify for? You don't want to walk away from the house and realize you're not buying what you thought you were buying. You're not buying in the neighborhood where your kids go to school. Being pre-approved for that purchase ahead of time before you split that equity. If you're looking to refinance and pull equity out to pay the spouse off, what does that look like? What is that new interest rate? What does that new mortgage payment look like? So there's quite a few things that go into it that you really want to think about before you make the big emotional decision.
Yeah, I've had quite a few clients that have actually never gone through the process of speaking to a lender prior to agreeing to, keep or sell the house. And so that goes back to mediation. They'll go through with an attorney or in mediation and put some of those clarifications in of making sure that you can financially support yourself in the house. But a lot of people just skip through and fluff through that kind of process and then realize how expensive it is. And the number one thing that I hear is I think we don't understand, let me say this in a nice way. It's very hard through divorce to keep your same lifestyle. It's just almost impossible. And so the quicker we get to the reality of what's happening, which is most likely your lifestyle, unless you're got millions and millions of dollars, your lifestyle will change. And even in that scenario of millions and millions of dollars, I've seen people that have $10 million and now have 5 or less. And to them, their lifestyle has drastically changed. So it doesn't really matter what lifestyle you have, it will change. And so I think running those numbers and understanding lifestyle was, like you said, if you sell a house, are you going to go rent after, which is perfectly acceptable. I rented after and got my bearings and needed a soft landing. I actually recommend that to a lot of my clients. But you also want to make sure you're setting yourself up for the future. So speaking with that lender, as far as understanding the impact of either blowing through that money, which I see a lot, unfortunately, people have never experienced maybe getting a chunk of money like they do in divorce. And so they don't meet with financial advisors. They don't think that they need a lender to get back into another house. So it's really imperative to speak with this entire financial team to make sure that you're making educated guesses. But Dan, the number one thing the question I get is, we touched on it, but I want to go a little deeper, is somebody that just thinks that they can pop somebody off of a loan and keep the 2 to 3% interest rate at the same rate and just magically divide the equity. I don't mean that in a, what's the word for it? I'm not trying to,
Pejorative.
what?
Pejorative.
Yes. Oh, that's a big word. I was
You're going to travel.
But unfortunately, people just think it's easy and it can be doable. So when somebody comes to you, Dan, and they say, okay, I just want to pop the X off and I want to keep that, go through what a divorce assumption loan looks like and the actual process of what they need to do in that scenario, giving somebody half of the equity, and then whether it's refinancing or doing a divorce assumption loan.
When rates were the same, I have a 5%, I'm getting divorced, rates are 5.5%. A refinance is the easy answer. We refinance into the one person's name and the other person is removed. You need to be able to qualify in that. So where was the income? We work with what's called debt to income. We work with credit scores. Has your credit been affected by the divorce? What are the debts that you're keeping on? What income are you showing? Are you self-employed and you used your spouse's W-2 income to qualify for mortgages in the past? Those are all things to look at. The divorce assumption, it does happen. It's not a magic wand. It's not, don't just go online and push a few buttons and it happens. I have clients that will go to the lender and they will work on it. I've seen it take almost a year. They're going to take you through underwriting. This is not, we see people a lot that I've been banking with whatever bank for 25 years. I'm sure they're going to be fine. With these mortgages, there's investors behind whoever underwrote your loan, whoever you got your loan from. And the investors have their guidelines as far as what a divorce assumption looks like. The person that's making the assumption needs to qualify. They need to see what's happening to the equity, what your spousal support, what your child support is going to look like. There's a lot that goes into it, an appraisal. There's a lot that goes into it. It can be a difficult process. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is something that's not, it's not quick and it's not simple.
So the one thing I'll just interject there real quick is what I think a lot of people misunderstand about divorce assumption loans is, and just to give you a general terms of what that is, it's keeping your same interest rate and doing exactly what I said, popping that other party off, but you still have to qualify. Let's say it's a 3% interest rate. You still have to qualify for your existing loan. They won't allow you to even start that process until your divorce is finalized. So there's that one caveat. You don't really get to know if it's a solid yes or no until the divorce is finalized. And so that's only one part. That's what people forget. If you have to give equity, if you have to divide a couple $100,000 worth of equity and also give that to your ex, tell me if I'm wrong, Dan, they don't just give you a higher loan at that lower interest rate. You're only keeping that loan and you still have to get a second loan for the equity that you're giving, correct?
Yeah, 100% correct. You're the low, when you're doing an assumption, you're assuming the current note. The current note is the interest rate, the payment. The only thing they're doing is crossing out your soon to be ex's name off that note. Another thing to take is we see people that are saying, I'll just keep the loan. We're still friends. He'll be fine staying on the loan or she'll be fine. Why would you not want to stay on your ex's mortgage? One, credit. It's a late on a mortgage payment is a huge thing to your credit. And even if you're not involved anymore, if your name's on that note, that's going to be pretty disastrous. The other thing is qualifying for a mortgage. And I deal with mortgages, but anything else that's going to show on your credit report debt is there, it's going to need to be accounted for in your debt to income. So it can affect you.
And I had somebody too that I call it divorce 2.0. It's the after part post divorce that nobody talks about when they're going through divorce. And usually one party or the other could move on, maybe even quicker than you would like. And I had a person that went through staying on the mortgage, and then the out spouse, the person that left, said, oh, yeah, I'll stay on the mortgage for a while and I want the kids to be in there. And guess what? The out spouse meets somebody, wants to get married, can't qualify for both, and desperately wants to get out. And so that changes, situations change. Let's just be honest. We have no idea what's going to happen post divorce. And so that's another thing that can be sticky. But I agree. Why would you want to be on the mortgage with? I personally wouldn't. Laura has great, she puts this all in the MSA and she does this time and time again where they do stay on the mortgage, but I personally would not want to. So one of the things that you can do too is you can trade other assets instead. So going to the example that we just talked about, maybe divorce assumption loan is viable. You can do that with the first note. And then the equity division here that you need to get out of the house and pay can actually be traded with other assets. That's something that can happen to where if you have that ability, that's a very cleaner way of doing it than having that second note. You can also refinance and cash out equity. You could get a second or a HELOC. I wouldn't recommend that right now, Dan, because HELOCs are very expensive in this market. But do you still have people doing that?
We do HELOCs every day. HELOCs with people with rates locked in the 2s and 3s, like we discussed before. A good way to keep that first is to go into a HELOC. The nice thing about a HELOC is that it's literally a line of credit, like a credit card, where you can go up and down on what you owe. It is adjustable. So when the rates move, when the Fed moves the rate, your rate moves right along with it. So that can be exciting, a lot more exciting than a 30-year fixed, where you have the same boring payment every month. Every time the Fed talks, you get to change your payment one way or another. But yeah, it is, the interest rate on it can be higher. But a fixed rate mortgage, 30-year fixed mortgage is going to be a cleaner way to do it, but it's always an option.
Yep. Okay. So let me move on. I'll blow through these a little bit and then I'll come back to you too for the other ones. So the selling option, I'm going to go very quickly through because this is you deciding to sell. You've gone through all those questions, the emotional, you've gone through the financial statement. I like on the financial statement in that guide too that I have. I actually have an income, it's almost like a profit and loss statement for a business. You should be looking at this as a business in this transaction. It sounds horrible to think of a 20-year marriage that could be transactional, but that's what divorce does. It is a transaction at this point, and you've got to do that profit and loss statement. So it's categorizing all your income, categorizing all your expenses, knowing where those costs are. Once you go through all of those exercises, then let's say you decide to let go. So you decided to move on. You want the peace. You want the cash infusion to pay off debt and rebuild. It's a number one thing that people look at when they've done that reverse engineering of where they want to be 1 year, 3 year, 5 years out. They're like, you know what? Taking that cash sounds pretty good right now. I can rebuild. I can do other things with it, make my own decisions on where that money goes versus being stuck. It's also a cleaner division of assets. So no future disputes over the house, as we mentioned, and emotional closure. So I'm going to go through 2 little tax traps. We're going to do this quick because I want to ping over to the other guys too. But tax trap number 1 is capital gains. It's a conversation that we don't talk enough about, and it is something you definitely 1000% have to do in going through divorce because it can be very large if you've owned your home for quite some time. I've been dealing with, well, gosh, in 2023, my estimates from one evaluation, let's say in February, I evaluated a home for, let's just call it simple numbers of $1 million. And 2 months after that, it was like gained another $200,000 in equity. That's how fast the market was moving. It was literally, you could get $500,000 more in the matter of 6 months. It was insane. It's very hard to price properties, and everyone wanted more. We are not there anymore, thankfully. We are stabilizing and going the reverse a little bit. But you most likely, if you've owned your home over the last 3+ years, will have gains on it. So how that works is if you're married, you receive a $500,000 capital gain exemption. So let's say you bought the home for $500,000. Now it's worth 1.5. You've got $1 million gain. Again, I'm just using, we're in Southern California, we're higher priced homes. So we're dealing with larger spreads as far as equity. So you buy it for 500, you sell it for 1.5. There's $1 million that you've gained since the time you own the house till the time that you go to sell. This is if you decide to sell and divorce. So when you sell and divorce, there's $1 million gain. Right off the bat, you can exempt this $500,000 because you're married. So $500,000 goes right off the bat. Then there's all this other stuff that can be whittled off of that. There's realtor fees, there's any upgrades that you've done in the home. That is what a CPA will go through with you to figure out that dollar. Then you will, whatever it's whittled down to, let's say it's whittled down to $250,000, you will pay Uncle Sam a percentage on that. And it is a federal law. This is not state specific. You will pay that to Uncle Sam. What people don't realize is when, let's say you divorce and then couple years from now, you're like, okay, now the kids have graduated high school and now I want to sell. You only get $250,000. So that difference between $500,000 and $250,000 can be a lot. It was over $80,000 for one of my clients who just didn't figure out that, hey, if I want to sell the house in 2 years, I kind of got to decide now what I want to do because I may need that $500,000 exemption while married to save myself some money. Because now, guess what's happened? 2 years from now, your home most likely is going to continue to go up. So this spread is even bigger. What could have been a $500,000 exemption, now you only get $250,000, and now your gain is just increasing each year. So that needs to be reverse engineered now to decide what you want to do. So it's a huge tax trap. You have to talk to a CPA. Right down here. Talk to your CPA before you decide, not after. Don't talk to the real estate agent because I know enough to be dangerous in that world. And it actually is a very complicated thing. Yeah. Do not talk to me. Can they talk to you, Dan? Probably not. CPA.
I might know 1% more than you.
Yeah.
One fact that's important there is you need to have lived in the property for 2 out of the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So if
Very important.
if you're 1 3/4 of the year in there, you should wait a little while. If for some reason you're deciding, let's turn it into a rental property and split the rent, keep in mind, you got 3 years to sell that property and be able to use these numbers before you lose that ability.
Yeah, because most buyouts end up selling within 2 to 5 years anyway. There's very few times somebody taking the house forever. Maybe in gray divorce or silver divorce, the higher you get, you want to just stay forever. But even then, people just want to move on. All right, another tax trap is Prop 19. This is a powerful tax break. This is specific to California. But if you are 55 and over, it's one of those hidden areas that unless you have a great mediator or an attorney kind of walking you through this, it is serious dollars. So it is, if you've owned the home, especially for 20, 30 years, and you've been in there for a while, your tax base at whatever you're paying right now, and we know it's gone up crazy, especially on higher expensive houses that you potentially may be moving to, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars a year, and only one person keeps it. You sell a home, you can keep that tax basis up to 3 times in your lifetime. You can transfer it to different areas in California and your old tax base will remain the same, but only one person can have it. But it's a negotiating point to really talk about through your divorce on who's going to get that Prop 19 tax if you're 55 and over. Do you have any comments on that, Dan?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one to keep in mind. Move those numbers if you're thinking about selling the house and buying something comparable or even 20, 30% less. And those property taxes, depending on how long you've owned your home, your property taxes may be tripling. If you're dealing with a higher interest rate and much higher property taxes, you got to make sure you know what your numbers are before you walk in.
Yep. All right, so just 2 little slides. So this is a little checklist. I would just screenshot these next 2 slides because it's just going to give you, I don't give out these slides after, so please don't send me an email saying, give me the slides because I have it in a different, it's in my Claude. If you aren't using AI, this is amazing, but it's in my Claude account, so I just don't send it out. So please just go through and just screenshot these. But this is your checklist. So a divorce sale really does run a little differently. So here's how to do it right. You're going to start with the home evaluation, most likely from a real estate agent. Do not just go online and think Zillow is the way to evaluate your home. Zillow is a bot. And so how I explain it to people is it is not a human walking into your home. It is a bot that's just doing a radius search and just, it's an algorithm. So they don't know what your updates are. They've never been in your home. They don't want to be in your home. They actually don't know what the neighbor's upgrades are versus yours. They don't know with the old aerial shots if you have a pool or if you don't. So they really don't have any basis or should have any basis in your divorce. So do not use an online evaluation. You can get an appraisal, you can get a real estate agent, but get an accurate in today's market what that evaluation is. Number 1. 2, set communication ground rules up front. So this is actually a divorce sale. This is what this is specific to as far as a seller checklist. I have so many people that can't be in the same room, can't talk to each other, got triggered if I put them on text messages. You need somebody that asks you way up front, how do you want to be communicated in this divorce transaction? It's really crucial because it just sets the whole tone. 3 is you present the home as a neutral, lived in, and stable so buyers don't smell a fire sale. People don't realize that when you see piecemeal of stuff, the husband got the couch and the wife was keeping the table and the whole house is dismantled and you've got only one side of the closet occupied, the other side's clear. Guess what? Buyers walking through are going to go, oh, I know what's happening there. They absolutely need to sell and we're going to come under. And let me just tell you, they're already coming under in this market. This is right now, today, I'm in it every single day. People can say whatever they want. In the price ranges I have right now, it is buyer's market. So homes are selling more or they're on the market longer and buyers are getting deals. I see a couple homes that are getting multiple offers, not very many. They're like perfect. Review disclosures together. Both spouses are still legally sellers. I have so many people that are like, nope, I'm out of here. You do them. You both need to just know that you are still a part of this sale and you both need to be protected. So you need to read everything that's happening. Decide in advance how offers, counters, and repair costs get approved. I can't tell you how crucial this is. I've had many fights and arguments with some clients that say, nope, I don't want it. We got an offer. It's under. I'm not selling at that price. This is the only offer we've received in 3 months. So we got to figure out how to work through this. And so you've got to have, I usually go in with a baseline. What are you willing to sell this home for in today's market? I'm going to try to get you the highest price possible. That's obviously a real estate agent's goal. But buyers are going to come in and we need to preset those parameters as far as what you're willing to walk away with so that I know and I don't have one ticked off spouse that doesn't actually want to sell. That's really what it boils down to. They don't really want to sell. So they're just hard through the entire transaction. Don't be that person. Have that conversation ahead of time. And then make sure that your real estate agent gives you a net sheet of what you're going to net. So that again, you can both be on the same page. Do debts need to be paid off? Some escrow companies will do this, some won't. I have one that will actually pay off some credit cards through the transaction, some won't. So ask that question. If you need debt to be paid off through those proceeds, do that. If you have gains, capital gains that you need to figure out, where does that money flow through? Because guess what? If it flows 50-50 and one person has those tax debt at the end of the year, and guess what? They blow through that money. You got to figure out all that. So figure out your net sheet and figure out who's controlling some of those costs. And then last thing is just the clarity scorecard of what we just went through. So know your numbers, income, expenses, and assets. You've considered the capital gains, maybe Prop 19. You've talked to the lender or financial advisor. You're very clear on where your future self needs to be. You're deciding from a very zen as you can be in this process. Look, I can talk to you all day long about not being emotional, but I was there. I was emotional, but try to be grounded with no fear. And then have a support team like you have tonight. Not necessarily us if we're not in your market, but these are the types of people and professionals that you absolutely have to have on your side in this process. All right, Dan, anything that
Yeah.
you want to add?
I completely agree. I think that's great information. I think from the mortgage side, you really need to look at it from 2 angles. What am I going to qualify for moving forward? What am I going to have to put down? And what is the max that I could borrow? The second thing is, what do you want to buy? How much is that going to cost you? And then you can look. We see 2 types of borrowers. The type of borrower that this is as much as you can get. You need to lower your expectations. And the more conservative, this is all I want to pay. What does that get me? So you really need to know ahead of time, what are you capable of and what you want? What is that going to cost? And that's going to help you make your decision.
Yep.
All right. Are we good? All right. Let me bring Ken back in. We're going to talk about some of the litigation versus mediation aspects of the home because it can be quite different, as Jennifer alluded to.
You guys take it away.
Yeah. Come on in here, Ken. Yeah.
There
So-
it goes. It just wasn't responding.
That's okay. It's okay. Excellent. Thank you for that massive overview because it's so important. Because the home is not only one of your biggest assets, but it's where you live. You can have your 401k and wallpaper your walls, but you can't live in it. And you may have a child that's trying to graduate high school or get out of preschool. In the mediated environment, I just want to say that quite often we're talking about what are your options relative to your circumstances, because we can be more creative than you certainly can in a litigated environment. Ken can talk about that for sure. But sometimes we nest in the home, meaning the children stay there and the parents take turns leaving. Sometimes we delay the sale of the home until son or daughter graduates high school in 2 years and you both stay on the mortgage. And I always require that you put it in tenants in common so that if somebody dies, which nobody plans on doing, that it flows through your estate. So there's strategies for that in mediation. Also, we're talking about, Jennifer said, oh, nope, I wouldn't want to stay on the mortgage. But guess what? In a mediation, so here's an example. So wife's going to assume the mortgage, but you can't even apply until you have a judgment. And husband says, I'm willing to stay on the mortgage for up to 3 years, whether or not you qualify for the assumption. Because guess what? I'm going to pay you less spousal support, because spousal support is need and ability to pay. And I helped reduce your need. And my ability to pay went a little down because I'm renting. And my rent's $4,000, $4,500 a month for something comparable in your mortgage. So in a negotiated environment, you have an opportunity to look at the home as something that resolves even a portion of spousal support. It's not just an asset. It's a place where your children can stay in their school district. It's a place where the spouse that's trying to restart a career can rehabilitate. It's stability. It's so many things. So sometimes when we take it out of the strict asset category and we think about is, how does this play into the whole family network? What are we doing to preserve the best interests of the family and help everybody move forward without both of you renting your $4,500 rent instead of one person in 2,300 and one person in 4,500? How do we help that happen, and for how long? So those are some of my comments. Ken, chime in.
Sure, I don't really have too much to add, because I come from the world where in litigation where there's really nothing as far as imagination at play. Creativity's out the window. Sadly, when you litigate the issue of what to do about the house, there's only one answer a judge can give you, which is put it on the market and split the net proceeds. So I think you told a story once about how some attorneys call and ask you, Laura, to use some of the language in your settlement agreements to properly address some of these more creative options on disposition of the house, which are available in mediation. And it's because, and that illustrates the point, in the world of litigation, there's just one size fits all, sell it and split the
Yeah.
proceeds. So I really think all I have to add is really, if you can,
Yeah.
this is just one other aspect which supports my advice that if you can mediate your divorce, because you can actually genuinely explore good, viable options on how to address division of the house as opposed to just off it goes to be sold and split the proceeds.
For sure. And even like when Jennifer was talking about capital gains, there's IRS rules. We can maintain you both as, because probably the other partner spouse is not going to run off and buy a house. So I can make it so that both of you are still the primary homeowners and you're not losing that capital gains exemption if you're delaying a sale. So in mediation, we talk about delayed sale, usually around possibly nesting, but maybe not. We talk about, is somebody keeping the house as a way of managing support? And so you get to have this and you get to assume that mortgage, like we talked about, that 2% or 2.5 or 3% mortgage and Prop 19. So in a negotiation, not in court, but in a negotiation, and I have this going on right now, husband's keeping a home worth $900,000. It has no mortgage. And wife goes, well, I want Prop 19. And then I'm like, what about the fact that you're going to keep all these capital losses and there's value there? So you need a mediator and you need to build a team, someone like Lori, to help you identify, what am I negotiating? What can I negotiate on? Because the first thing husband asked me, goes, if I went to court, would they say Prop 19? I said, no, they say sell the house.
Exactly.
They've already
Yeah,
said
and
what
just
Prop 19 is.
not to sound callous, but just doesn't care because
Yeah. Right.
yeah, because the judge is tasked with dividing all community assets. And the one judge said it best in one of these situations, because there was these two, spouses in front of them trying to tell the judge, we want to kind of do this and that. And the judge said, I'm sorry, but as a judge, when I look in the toolbox of what I can do here, I reach in, I have one tool, and it's a hatchet. I gotta order the house sold, and the hatchet comes down, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? It sucks. I'm not saying that I'm endorsing that it's a good thing, but that's the unfortunate reality of, if you're going to litigate, that's what you're going to end up with. To be fair, under the family code, there is this provision where it allows a judge to, in their discretion, which they never exercise, to order a deferral of the sale of the house if there's kids and if they find it in the best interest. And it requires a judge to do this financial analysis to see if it's economically feasible. Let me tell you how many times I've seen a judge do that in the last 19 years. Zero. Yeah. They're not going to do it. I'm just saying yeah, the family code says, yeah, judge, you can. And the judge looks at that and is like, I'm just not going to do it. It says it's up to the judge's discretion and they're going to decide that they're not going to do it. So the
Because
reality,
they're like, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
especially in our market. I mean,
Exactly.
we're in a
And
very
that's a
unusual
great
market.
point, Laura, because
Yeah.
in this environment, a judge isn't going to they're also thinking to themselves, I don't want to be in a position where that people are going to make some kind of profit out of it. And their mindset is, look, in exercising my discretion to go and order it sold, it's going to come out such that they earn money. They're going to come away with something that they can show for it. And I'm not saying that's the best result, but in the judge's mind, I did the best I could for them. That's really what's happening here.
Because the judge is thinking, this is as fair as I can be because it
Exactly.
doesn't favor either party. Just sell it.
Exactly.
But to use your capital gains exemption now. And
Yeah.
I don't know what moving on looks like, and I'm not going to worry about that because they're
Yeah.
not mediated.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just want to say that if the home, and it often is a central feature, don't plan to litigate. Don't think, oh, I'm going to get the house, so I'm hiring the shark. Guess what? Sharks bite even people they like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So think more about how can we think about options. That's why we have to go to Lori next to preserve these family assets in a way that it gives the best benefit to the whole family. How does this work into the whole system? Take it away, Lori.
Thanks, Laura and Ken. And I know we have a lot of questions that have come in, and so I'll try to be 10 minutes or less, 5 or 10 minutes. Jennifer talked a lot and had some great stuff to say, and I want to emphasize some of the points she made and also add a few of my own. First of all, for everyone who wants to keep the house, I totally empathize because I hate change. I know how difficult it is to move once you've been in a place a long time. I get where you're coming from. Many clients will say to me, hey, Laurie, it's so much cheaper to keep the house than it is to rent, right? And they're asking me for validation of that statement. And I simply cannot let that go without doing my job, which is to help you validate whether that's true or not true. And some of the things that Jennifer talked about was really understanding the costs of staying in that home. It's not just the mortgage principal and interest and the homeowner's insurance that seems to go up all the time, and the property tax that goes up, and the HOA that goes up, and the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance, the deferred maintenance. So I really like to try to spend time with my clients to show them what is really the monthly cost of this house, and is it really that much cheaper than renting? Let's just look at apples to apples. So once you have that information, another important piece is you're getting a realistic handle on what it costs now to live in that house and what it will cost in the future if we have things that go up, the expenses go up over time. So many of the clients are trying to qualify to refinance the mortgage or assuming the mortgage using child and spousal support if you're not the primary wage earner. And that's great. There's rules that allow you to use child support and spousal support if they meet certain parameters to qualify for a mortgage. But I want to remind people that child support goes away when your kids age out, and spousal support is rarely forever. So you may be able to afford that home today and that monthly nut, but what happens in a few years when you simply can no longer afford it because you haven't replaced the child and spousal support with your own employment income? So that's a very important issue. Model that. The other thing Jennifer said is that when you do, for my clients that have a lot of consumer debt, they have car loans, they have credit card loans, they have student loans for their kids, selling that house gives them a great opportunity to pay off some or all of that debt. And debt is just a black hole of despair. That's what I call it, because we all know the kinds of rates on credit cards, on HELOCs, and even without buying anything new, you are paying interest every month. And it's a huge expense, and it's an unnecessary expense. A few more points. Also, when you sell the home, you may have an opportunity, depending how much equity's in the home, to, let's say you have $500,000. That money can be put in savings in a money market fund, in a conservative investment like treasury bills. You could be making 3.5%, 4% a year. And on $500,000, if you're making 4%, and that's 20,000 a year, maybe you pay some tax, but it is possible that you can have another $1,000 a month after tax to go to subsidize your living expenses and also to help subsidize your rent if you're renting. So if you keep the house, you have that equity that can't be invested. And I'm not talking about going and buying Bitcoin or buying stocks. I'm talking about interest rates are really high right now. Why not take advantage of those and invest your money conservatively and safely and generate some income that you can spend on rent or other living expenses? When you negotiate to buy the house from your spouse's 50% community property interest, what are you trading? Are you trading a pension that's going to pay you guaranteed monthly income for life? Are you giving up a retirement account? What are you giving up? Because when you are retired and maybe you have some Social Security, maybe you don't have much Social Security, the house can't pay your bills, but a retirement account or a pension can generate monthly income to pay your bills. And the last thing I want to talk about is Jennifer spent a lot of time on that capital gains exclusion, the 500,000 versus the 250,000 if you're the sole owner of the home, the only person on title. And she mentioned something about $80,000, and she's absolutely right. If you buy out the house and then a few years later you sell it, you're essentially paying about $80,000 more in taxes just to keep that home for a few more years. And that's because not only do you have a federal capital gains tax, which is either going to be 15 or 20%, but for the last few years, there's also been something called the net investment income tax, which is 3.8%, which is applied on you if you have an income of a certain threshold. It applies. And then the state capital gains tax is essentially the same as the state income tax, which for most people can be 9.3% or higher. So when you sell a home in the future, people forget the gain on that home is going to be added to any other income you've earned that year. And you could be finding yourself reporting $1 million in income or $800,000 of income, and the tax on that is going to be huge. So another reason why selling incident to the divorce, around the time of the divorce or soon thereafter, and sharing that capital gains liability with your spouse may be a good idea. So that's a litany of issues that I look for, but all those issues really have to be considered. Whether you just spend 2 minutes or 2 hours, it doesn't matter, but please make sure you've gone through all those financial and tax issues so you have a true picture of the decision you're making.
Thank you, Lori. That's so important. And I also want to compare, and we'll jump back in, mediation versus litigation. So in mediation, parties sometimes negotiate Prop 19. What if I sold this? What's my cost of sale? The judge doesn't give you that. If
No.
you choose the home, you get it with its current value, no reduction for your potential cost of sale, no
Wow.
reduction for capital gains, nothing. You do have Prop 19. You get
Yeah.
to carry that forward.
Yeah, no matter what. Yeah.
But what that's worth maybe $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
$80,000. How long would
Yeah.
it take you to believe that off? And someone like Lori can help you do that math.
Yeah.
Because I always tell my clients, and you can tell me, all of you, when I'm coaching, I'm like, if you are not planning to keep this home for 7 years, you probably shouldn't keep the home.
Oh, I tell them if you're not ready to die in the home, you shouldn't keep the home. No.
Yeah.
Or Laura's the conservative. She's talking
Yeah.
T-bills, and I'm like still doing my. Honestly, if you're thinking, oh, I just want to get my son out of high school in 3 years and then I'll sell it, all that on you,
Yeah.
unless you've negotiated it, which is why I talk about a deferred sale, or we're going to still be in this boat together and we'll sell it when the son graduates and we'll still get the capital gains together.
So you have to really cooperate and
Yeah.
work and collaborate with
Yeah.
your spouse. Now you're making a lot of decisions together and a lot of commitments to each other. So you need a strong mediator to do that for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to throw on top of that, it has to be shored up. So when I have clients that agree to delay a sale or stay on a mortgage for X number of years to help their spouse so they can have reduced support, I always require at the time of signing, title is transferred and it goes into a trust. So that if husband's still on the mortgage and wife drops dead and she owns the home and he's still on the mortgage, that his trustees must continue. Everything's all settled. So I don't let anybody leave. And I don't know how many mediators do this. I've trained other mediators in my mediation training, but honestly, I think, Ken, you said one time recently, we were talking about this, you're like, what? Do you let people do that? I don't
Yeah.
let people do it without a safety net. And if they're
Yeah.
not willing to do a title transfer, so let's imagine wife owns the home and she's given up a chunk of retirement, but husband's agreed to stay on the mortgage and then he's going to pay a reduced spousal support. It has to go into a trust and say that husband's protected, that if she dies, he doesn't have a mortgage and no house. Okay.
Got it.
So for sure, there's layers to this. And if you don't
That
have a
makes sense.
sophisticated enough mediator who says, how can we protect you if you want to be this kind person and pay less spousal support? How can we protect you? You're not protected. You are, your ass is in the wind. That's all I'm going to say. So
Yeah.
protect yourself. So
I can't
let's
tell
do
you
that.
how many people don't do that. They say, I think we've all seen it. I'll just stay on the mortgage. What's the worst that can happen? My mortgage lender told me that if she's paying for 12 months, then I can all of a sudden I'll be able to qualify for my own place. And nobody talks about what happens if you are on the loan for a property that you don't own.
I know.
Yeah.
It's where I struggle
People
with
do
that.
die. I just know a
Terrifying.
couple worth a 2.5-year-old and husband just died, and he's only 36 of a heart attack
No.
in the midst of the mediation.
Oh,
No,
that's
like we don't know. We don't know when we're being called. You
Yeah.
can't say, "Oh, you're only 40. I don't need this protection." And I've had people say, "I'm not going to do that." I've said, "Then I'm not writing your marital settlement agreement this way because
Yeah.
I'm not going to be responsible if somebody dies."
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're
No,
like, "I'll stay on the mortgage for 5 years." Good for you. I hope to
Yeah.
be retired in 5 years, and you will not find me. But either way,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
so do you have to? And like Ken goes, he doesn't even get to construct these crazy clauses or some 50-page marital settlement agreement
Yeah.
because it has to be solid. Do not go on a wish and a prayer. Okay.
Can I just say one thing to us all and then
Yeah.
it's
Go
on
for it.
here? Every single time we have these webinars, it is so shocking to me why people go into divorce wanting to keep the home and then get lawyers. And it's so clear every single time we have this discussion how black and white, because I don't even know if I knew that really in the depths of it until I started going down this path of specializing in this. But everyone's first thought is to lawyer up and then they want to keep the house. And 9 times out of 10, Ken, like you said, that doesn't happen. And it's just, I wish we could all plaster it and have a billboard, all these, different areas, not to put Ken out of business, but just
There's plenty of other stuff to litigate about.
Everything is big.
it's just so clear when we discuss this and people don't hear that. And you have one party wanting to lawyer up and one party to go to mediation. And then it's just so sad. That's the
So
sad part.
Jennifer, you're saying that if your goal is to keep the home,
Yeah.
you'd be better served going to mediation than hire
Yeah.
people.
That is exactly what I'm saying to
Yeah.
bring that up. Yes. But they don't understand that. And nobody tells them. I just don't understand.
And you have to be with a mediator that is open to these creative options and knows how to draft them. Because I've actually done mediation trainings and I've trained on this, and they're like, "Oh, Whoa, that's cool. That's new.
Yeah.
It's not germane. So I'm just saying, if you're telling your mediator, I don't mind staying on the mortgage, but I want these provisions, it'll wake them up. Or if your mediator already knows how to do that, because they don't tell me they want these provisions in mediation. I tell them I'm only drafting it if you're agreeing to these provisions, because somebody's potentially at high risk. Dan, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, we say
can you
love.
imagine?
It's tough.
You guys, we have tons of questions. Are there
Let's
any
jump
that
to
we
some.
can answer quicker?
Go for it. You go ahead and give us some of the ones we want to tackle.
Lori, are you looking at these too? Let's see.
I was trying to find mine, and for some reason I can't.
So a quick answer, some of them are pretty in depth, but one quick one is, what are the ways to divide the equity with other things that are negotiable in divorce?
Yeah, and
different for
this is
everyone.
very common where people can swap assets when you're mediating. Again, in litigation, you sell the house, you split it, you split the retirement. They do it categorically, whereas we often need Lori for this, because I always say to people, so someone comes to your house, knocks on your door, I want to buy your house. Would you like to take my retirement? I try to make it real for people. I'm like, no, I want some cash. Okay. Guess what? In mediation, and say you have a 401k and you have $1 million and your spouse needs 500,000. You can't give them the whole 401k, because half of it's theirs already. And the other half is for the house. Because guess what? They're not 59 and a half. When they take it out, they have to pay tax on it. So you need someone like Lori to help you to evaluate this proposal that your spouse made. So if I get $1 million in retirement and I need 500,000, 500 is mine already, and I get 500 in retirement for the house, am I good? Am I golden? Maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe.
Each
Because
dollar
it's going to
is
grow tax free, and you like retirement because you only have 5 cents in retirement.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a sure thing. It's a negotiation. Build
Yeah.
a team. Build a team, right?
Yeah.
Here's another question that I've been asked and I don't know the answer to. Maybe some of us know. Although my husband's veteran status made the VA loan available, the spouse arranged the refinancing and obtained a great rate. Can a non-veteran spouse assume that existing loan after divorce, preserve that rate, and obtain a full release of the veteran spouse's liability? And then what happens to his entitlement, VA entitlement? So anyone know this
Dan might
answer?
know.
I can answer that.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
VA loans are assumable by non-veterans, whether it's the spouse or the random person purchasing that house. They can assume that loan. You need to qualify. So you would need to qualify for that loan without the spouse. It does affect that person's eligibility. So that person would want to calculate, if they're looking to purchase a loan with another VA loan, what would that eligibility be? Chances are, if they're walking away from the house, maybe they're going to have some equity, they're going to have a down payment, and that eligibility will be okay. If they're looking to continue with 100% financing, they want to make sure they're calculating that. So the person that's assuming it needs to make sure they qualify for that assumption and have the time to go through that assumption process. And the veteran needs to make sure that their entitlement, if they're planning on using it, is enough to get them what they want in their new house.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I've been in this situation in mediation, and they've had to research, like you say, are they giving up their whole credit? Because you're not getting another 100% finance. It depends on the equity, right? So you got to research it. But I have been in a situation where there was an assumption, and the veteran was still able to get a loan, but it's contingent on the facts.
Yeah, that definitely can happen.
Yeah.
We have another question here that's interesting. Since we've been talking about tax implications, are you required to tell your spouse that you're divorcing that they will get taxed on the sale of the house if they keep the house? Or if there's a trade like a 401k for a buyout, do you have to tell your spouse that the 401k money will eventually be taxed when it's withdrawn? So I think this is a legal question and a mediator question.
I'm laughing because I'm like, if your mediator is not helping you to decipher this, or your consulting attorney,
Yeah.
then you're in the wrong place.
Yes.
Because you should, your spouse is not required to tell you that you're not negotiating well.
That's true.
Your
Yeah.
attorney, your consulting attorney will help you to set expectations, and your mediator is responsible to inform you jointly.
Yeah.
So I put it all on the table. By the way, this hasn't been taxed. By the way,
Yeah.
it's been, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from a financial standpoint, I think it's all about making informed choices.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is an area I think that's it just kind of illustrates how important it has to someone like Lori there to really understand all of these nuance,
Yeah.
how different assets are treated from a tax point of view and so on and so forth. Because as smart as attorneys like to think they are, there's so much of that financial stuff that
Yeah.
escapes us. To be fully informed and truly understand all the financial aspects of how any asset or debt division will work in a divorce, get someone like Lori without question.
This is a good one that just came into the last one that came in. My ex wants to buy me out using her retirement money, 401k, but she's only offering a low value for the house. Can I refuse her offer and force a sale? What are the tax implications for me? Also, since I already have a lawyer, can I come to you for mediation? Three-part question. Can they refuse the offer and force sale? Yes.
Yeah, that's easy. If people can't come to an agreement, you're going to end up litigating in front of a judge. And like I said, a judge is going to say, put on the market and sell it, split the net proceeds.
But let's throw
Next
this in.
case.
Can you force a sale quickly enough and when we're in a market that's softening?
That's the different question.
Well,
And that's
so for
a-
the value of the house, if you don't agree with the value, then you get your own evaluation too. And I always say
Yeah.
you can get up to 3 evaluations and just average the 3 together too. But if you don't know the person or like the person, I see this a lot that they know somebody, a realtor friend or family member that will give them a low evaluation. So get your own. So no, you don't have to agree to the valuation, but you should get your own evaluation to understand what that difference is. That's number one. And then, yeah, you guys said the for sale. And then tax, what are the
But
tax?
let me just throw a piece on that,
Yeah.
Jennifer. Because in law, the value of the home is closest to a negotiated agreement or
Or
sale.
trial.
Or trial, exactly. So meaning if you're in a softening market, you might be losing money
Yeah.
by not negotiating. So you got to put that in. Remember during COVID when everything was going up?
And people were
Yeah.
delaying it because again,
Negotiating.
Yeah.
$200,000 difference. Yeah.
I know. And now it's softening. And so that's the point. Can they mediate? If mediation requires that you both want to mediate, one person can't say, I'm mediating.
Yeah.
It requires a cooperative choice. Even if people
Yeah.
are litigating, I have mediated even significant one issue or a couple or the whole thing, finished it up. But I have to say the toughest part of litigants that want to mediate is they are arguing about who should pay whose legal fees. I don't have jurisdiction to award legal fees. And like, if you didn't do this, I wouldn't have done that. And so sometimes they end up back in litigation unless I say, if you want to mediate a litigated matter, I want you to first agree that here's how you're going to resolve your legal fees. And now we can have a successful mediation format
Yeah.
because it interferes.
Yeah.
And
And couple things I wanted to mention about that is if you are litigating and you are in a situation where the parties cannot agree on the value of the real estate, a judge will say, look, and it's a valid order, it'll be like each of you then get your own appraiser and then come in with those amounts and then we'll probably just end up splitting the difference. That's typically what end up happening in that situation. Also, the question about the urgency of the sale, can you just go to court and have a judge order the house put on the market and sold? You can, but you have to meet certain criteria. You can't just run to the judge and say, look, I want this sold now. Because you can, but the only way a judge typically, per the family code, is going to do that is if it's something is going to result in loss to the community. Typical situation is the last time I succeeded on this, we had one spouse living in the house who refused to cooperate with selling it. The other spouse who was the breadwinner had been laid off. So there was no way to keep up with the mortgage. So that's a situation where a community asset is in danger of falling into foreclosure. A judge urgently said, okay, put it on the market now. Absent something like that, a judge is going to say, okay, if you can't agree, got it. But in order to get an order to put it on the market to be sold, they're going to reserve that issue for trial. Which, yeah, you can get it ordered to
That
trial,
next year.
but that's the problem. I was just in court today setting trial dates, and they're looking some dates. We didn't get one, but they literally were mentioning dates in early 28.
28 or 27, 28.
Yeah, so it's just like, oh man. And that was because they're looking at really long blocks of time. But the point is I would say easily it's 8 months to a year nowadays to get to a trial. So keep that in mind. It's not uncommon for trials to be scheduled a year out.
Yeah. And let me address the 401k issue. So he wants to know, hey, if I'm supposed to be paid out $500,000 and my spouse is offering me $500,000 of her 401k, there's a few things I'd want to know. Is her 401k all pre-tax money? Is it Roth 401k? Is it a combination? I would say to this spouse who's taking the retirement, any chance you're going to move to Texas, Florida, Nevada, Washington State, where there's no state income tax, and all of a sudden that 401k is worth 9% more? So what's your financial situation going to be? Are you going to be a low income guy when you're retired? Or are you going to be a wealthy guy when you're retired with lots of income? Those are all the things. Now, we have no crystal ball, but we have to forecast that out so that you can go back and say, hey, I don't want 500,000 from your 401k. I'll take your offer if you raise it to 650.
Yeah, that's perfect, Lori. And also sometimes the age difference. I had a couple where husband was about 20 years older than wife. And I'm like, he's going to be dead. Your spousal support's going to be gone. He's not going to survive this spousal support thing. And he's offering to give you lump sum in 401k. And guess what? That's going to grow tax-free until you're 59 and a half, which she wasn't at the time. And so this is not a one size fits all. That's why someone like Lori, who's looking at it from all these dimensions, what's your circumstance? Actually, what state are you living in? I hadn't even thought about that one. If you're going to go to retire in Arizona where your grandkids are, or Nevada versus California, like 9% more could really make or break the bank. And also having a Social Security, right? There's so many components to this. The home is this albatross that you have to negotiate or yeah.
Oh, here's one more that's interesting that we get a lot. And I know we're running out of time. One more. It looks like this person has been maybe going through the divorce negotiations for 4 years or separating for 4 years. It's not clear. Mortgage has been getting higher. So I'm not sure how the mortgage is getting higher rather than lower. But then they want to know, does he still get half using what's left to pay? Or what about the benefit that she paid? So I'm not really understanding how the mortgage get higher.
It might be impounded, and so it could be property taxes and
Yeah, they do adjust the
mortgage
impound
payment.
It could be a reverse mortgage
Yeah.
or
Oh.
the very old negatively amortized mortgages.
so facts are necessary, but there in California, you can explain Epstein lots. It's an equitable solution. I was trying to tell people, old England said, that wasn't fair. We're going to make this fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ecclesiastical.
Fair-ish.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, bottom line, the starting point is any community asset, whatever the equity is in that gets split equally, but also any carrying cost, any debt that goes along with maintaining it is also split equally. But there's also, again, depending on the facts, there's like Laura mentioned, Epstein or Watts credit. So if one party moves out, technically, even though they moved out, they're on the hook for still half of the mortgage to keep maintaining it. And also not just the principal, but the interest, HOA fees, all of that. So that's gets in the realm of what they call Epstein credits. But the flip side of that is if you have one spouse that remains in the house living exclusively using that house, they technically owe the out spouse half of the fair market value for rent. So a lot of times it ends up being a wash, but now it's getting a little weird because you got these people with these really low 2.5% mortgages still, and then rents are now going through the roof. So it's not as much of an automatic wash as it used to be. So again, very fact specific analysis, but definitely issues to definitely keep and be aware of.
And the longer you're separated, the uglier and yuckier and harder to unwind.
Yes, it is.
I guess one of our best advice is if you're divorcing and there's a home or any kind of major assets, don't delay the process, because the longer that
Yeah.
you're in this sort of purgatory and you think, I'll just stay in the house and you go rent your apartment or whatever, and nothing's being decided, you don't know how much law is potentially being applied against you later. And it
Yeah.
just gets more expensive. The sooner, the better. If you're deciding this marriage is over, move forward so that everybody understands their risks and their opportunity, because there's both.
Yeah.
And you can make reasoned decisions by building a team. So that's what it's going to all be about.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us here this evening. I hope that you found this informative, and probably you felt a bit like you drank from a fire hose. So feel free to come back and listen, because this has been a recorded Vesta event, and you can reach out to our concierge and connect. The whole team will connect you with any one of us and or our video series. Our next session is going to be a live one if you happen to be local here in the North County of San Diego on September the 8th. And it's really just come and meet the professionals, ask your questions, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And then following up, our next seminar is going to be September 22nd, how to build your divorce team. Basically, it's going to be the smartest move you've ever made. Building a team is necessary to this process. Thanks again. We really appreciate having you here. Hope to see you again.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.